Hello, and welcome to The Confident Commit, the podcast for anyone who wants to join the conversation on how to deliver software better and faster.
If you're looking to build a trusted ship, tune in, let's confidently commit.
You're listening to Season 2, Episode 3. I'm your host, Rob Zuber, CTO of CircleCI. Today, I'm joined by Randy Shoup, industry luminary, chief architect at eBay. Returning member of eBay, correct, Randy?
Yeah, that's correct. Industry luminary. Boy, Rob.
I'm doing everything in my power, Randy, to turn this into the episode I want it to be, because I have heard so many awesome things from you over the years, and I just look forward to hearing more. And so thanks for joining me today. I'm really excited.
Oh, thanks for having me. It's always a joy to hang out with you and to talk about the fun work that we're doing. So, yeah.
Well, I appreciate that. I mean, the best part of doing a show like this is that you get to talk to folks about all the awesome different stuff that they've done. And so, speaking of which, you've returned to eBay. I think talking through all the amazing things you've done in your career would be the episode. So we'll let people figure that out on their own. But return to eBay after some amazing stints in other places, bringing back lots of knowledge and information. And then I had the chance to hear recently this story from you about some of the work that you've been doing around velocity, delivery, throughput, however you want to think about it. So, just to kick us off, can you give us a little bit of a background on what that was and sort of how that got started?
Yeah, sure. So, like you said, Rob, I returned to eBay about a year and a half ago as the chief architect and VP of engineering for our developer platform, our internal developer platform. So one of the main things that I work on, and more or less the reason that I returned, was to drive improvements in eBay's ability to deliver software, right? So eBay's at the end of the day, eBay's a software company, global marketplace with buyers and sellers, and but the way that we do that is with software. And we're also a 27-year-old company, so we got a lot of legacy that we've accumulated over time. And so what we experience is that our software delivery is slower than we would like, right? And so, we'd like to be able to deliver new features and bug fixes to customers faster. We'd like to be able to drive customer value, business value faster, and we weren't doing it as fast as we'd like. So when I re-arrived to do this work, although I didn't know what we were going to call it, we call it the Velocity Initiative, for lack of a better term. Mm-hmm. I looked at the whole board, did a kind of end-to-end survey of the entire product development process, right? So that's like idea, how does an idea become a project? How does a project become committed code? How does committed code get delivered as a feature to customers? And then once it's delivered to customers, how do we iterate on that in real time, right? So how do we learn, experiment, use analytics, et cetera? And we had issues at every one of those, in every one of those four phases, planning, software development, software delivery, and post-release iteration. And then also by doing this work, it became very clear in every one of the teams that I spoke with that the bottleneck today at eBay is software delivery. So we're done with the software, and now we want to get it out safely, reliably, repeatably to customers. And so that's where we focused. And fortunately, there's a ton of industry research that I know you're aware of, and hope a bunch of your listeners are, around the state of DevOps research and the Accelerate book. And so we started using that as a way to move forward.
Love it. Well, I mean, yes, I am aware, and I do hope that many folks listening are aware, but we spend a lot of time thinking about these things. Obviously, we spend a lot of time in the software delivery pipeline. So you mentioned that you came back basically to take this on, or this was a driver of returning. Was there a sense at a very high level that there was something missing or something that needed work from a software delivery perspective? You also mentioned teams reflecting on this. Sounds like there was understanding lower level. So was it ubiquitous, and was the understanding the same across the organization of where the challenges were?
Oh, wow. Fantastic question. So, because it's so nuanced. Yes, there is universal agreement on the problem, but not universal agreement, or a universal agreement that we weren't fast enough, right? So frustration from the executive level, and like, hey, why does it take months and months to get software done? And then also it's equivalent frustration at the kind of individual team level, like, why does it take so long to get software out? Why do I have to coordinate with all these other teams? Why is it so slow? et cetera. Why does my build take so long? Why does my testing take so long? So, so again, universal agreement on the meta problem of we are slower than we would like to be, not universal agreement on what the detail problem is. Do you know what I mean? Where the focus, and also not universal agreement on whether it was open and honest, like whether it was possible to solve. Like there's a lot of time, a lot of I'll say learned helplessness over time. We're like, you know what, this is just the way it always has been. And so the exciting thing for me coming back, and I partner with Mark Weinberg, who is another, not a returnee, but also joiner of eBay around the same time that I did in the product engineering side. I work in the platform, and we've been collaborating on this. But we each of us knows what fast looks like, and we know how to get from slow to fast. And that was a little bit new to the organization, where, like, again, a lot of people had this sense, both executives, middle managers, all the way down to, development teams. Everybody had a sense that we were slow, but not everybody believed we could be better or really knew how to do it. And so this initiative was 100% about going forward from there.
Yeah, well, there's so much within that. I guess I asked a big question, so I got a big answer. Like the learned helplessness, and then you coming in from the outside, Mark as well, having a perspective or a sense that it is possible.
Yeah.
So how do you then set goals / paint that picture for folks to say, no, really, I've seen this from the outside. Like I always use this Plato's cave analogy, which no one knows what I'm talking about. So at least this is on a podcast. People can go look that up. But like you've been to the outside and seen the possibilities, and now you're coming back and trying to say, no. Out in the other parts of the world, like this other thing happens and it's possible. Yeah. How do you bring people along for that ride, I guess, and paint that picture?
Yeah, it's good. Well, the beauty, in some sense, we're lucky that software delivery is our bottleneck, because again, there's the state of DevOps survey research over almost a decade, and captured very well in Nicole Forsgren's book Accelerate. So that not only states the same problem that we have, but also states the path to solution. And I'll answer all parts of your question if I can. In some sense, how to measure. Well, okay. So first, you were like, how do you paint the vision? And we both painted a long-term vision where every commit goes straight to production with no manual intervention. Every developer is checking in multiple times a day, and software is getting updated. Like features and bug fixes are going to customers multiple times a day. Software developers are mostly in flow time as opposed to in meetings or coordinating across teams. So we're doing small experiments, and only when those are successful do we double down with big cross-functional projects. So we did lay out a vision, but we mostly thought about it in terms of like talking to individual teams as a more, I don't want to say tactical, but a more near-term goal. So like that's the beautiful Roses and Unicorns vision, which I'm very confident we're going to get to, but not tomorrow. And so, talking to individual teams, here's what we did. So I'm going to combine a couple of things. The measurements, the industry standard measurements, which again come from the State of DevOps research and in the Accelerate book, are the 4 key metrics, as they say. Deployment frequency. How often are we deploying software to customers? Is it once a month, once a week, once a day, once an hour? Lead time, which is how long does it take from when a developer completes her code to when it shows up as providing value to customers? Again, does that take a month? Does that take a week? Does that take a day? Does that take an hour? And the research shows, people should look it up, that like companies cluster or organizations cluster. Yeah. So there are low performers for which the answer to both of those is measured in months. And there are the elite performers, the Googles, the Amazons, the Netflixes, where the answers to those are measured in hours. And so, and we start out solid medium performers before we started this work. So on average at eBay, a given application, and we have 4,000 of them, gets deployed, once or twice a month. And for the pilot teams we work with last year, which I can tell you about, we moved that to twice a week. And that's, on our way, it's medium performer to high performer. Lead time moved from, on average, a week and a half, so call it 10 days, down to 2 days. So major improvements. And again, there's a long way to go there. The reason why I mentioned those metrics was that's not only a way to evaluate ourselves with industry standard measures that are scientifically proven per all of Dr. Forskin's work, but also that's the way to have the conversation. So the conversation that we have with individual teams is, and did this over and over again, like, look, we see that you're deploying, once or twice a month. If I told you you had to deploy every day, tell me all the reasons why you can't. And teams are like, oh boy, builds are slow and testing is slow, and I have to coordinate with 10 million teams, and like the requirements are, I have to go back and forth with product and design, and like tick, all these things that they know and live and have been correctly frustrated about for a long time. But finally, the wonderful part about this conversation is I would say, great, you just gave me the roadmap for my team.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that perspective of let's not set a target and then just walk away, but like let's ask an ambitious question about, I'll call them constraints, right? What if this were the requirement?
Yeah.
And it's a requirement that people have probably discarded in the past because there's too many things in the way. And just said, put yourself in this framework. Like what would it look like for you to operate this way? And then you just get the checklist, and I'm sure it's not, and then just, burn down through the checklist.
Yeah,
I'm sure there were many hard things, right? But to have that, people know what the problems are, right? That's the interesting thing, right? People know where they're struggling. They just maybe haven't been given the permission or the space to go solve those problems.
Yeah, so 100%. So people, when asked in that way, you give permission to people to notice, hey, this does take a week, or from when I'm done to it shows up on the site. And asking that question in that way gives them the framing of like, oh, well, how, what is between here and there? And again, there's a lot of, this is normal human behavior, but like there's a lot of learned helplessness around, well, you know what? We've been delivering twice a week, once every 2 weeks for, a decade. And like, what's the problem? And, this is just how it is. And so, reframing it in that way and asking the question about, please tell me your team's bottlenecks. Please tell me your team's impediments. And then not just saying, let's complain about that stuff, but like every time you complain, I'm going to help you. Right? Every complaint I hear is an opportunity for me to partner with you to make suggestions about how it could be different, to give you a tool to, blah, blah, blah. And I forget who said this, but it's somebody in the lean thing. But it's like, it's not that the obstacles are in the way of the path. The obstacles are the path. The obstacles are the path, right? The way we get better, this is theory of constraints, this is lean, this is plan, do, check, act. It's what is between us and a better thing. Let's experiment and make that one thing better, make one forward step, and then see, are we better? Great. If we are, let's keep doing more of that and try another thing. And if we're not better, okay, try a different thing.
Yeah, that's I love that perspective. I also love that you just listed like 5 things that people are hopefully going to go, there's entire fields that you can go discover just to kind of get to this. And I think that's what's probably one of the great values, that you bring to this is all that outside experience, right? Going through a bunch of these cycles, thinking about these problems, and then showing up and saying, yeah, people have solved this, right? And actually, I was going to ask, you talked about, having the standard metrics. We understand there's some correlation to business returns or business success, so that's valuable. But how valuable were the benchmarks in that conversation to be able to say, yes, there are companies who perform at this level, to kind of break that model of disbelief?
Oh man, so much in that. I got them in a go in reverse order, and then I'll forget to tell you about all the great resources in the DevOps community. But I'll start from there are great resources in the DevOps community. So I didn't make up any of the things I just said. Lean, Toyota production method, theory of constraints, all these things are things that are out there in the world, and other people smarter than me have found them and applied them to software in a very actionable way, and then I've learned from them. So I get the opportunity to have experience working in companies, that move quickly, Google, Stitch Fix, and others, but also have this both theoretical and practical framework and references to point people to. But yeah, you asked like, what's the value of the standard metrics? Oh gosh, Nicole, Dr. Forsgren, it has has given the industry more than almost anybody in the last 10 years. The Accelerate book, lots of people know the practice. I mean, it's not new to a lot of us. Like, yep. But she put it together in such a way that it's super clear, including those metrics, which I'm going to get back to. And also, the second half of the book is for the skeptical people that think, trunk-based development and continuous delivery and, all these practices can't work. The second half of the book is all the science that says why they do. And so, boy, what a rock star. She's just the best. But yeah, having the standard metrics was what has made these conversations super easy, because we're not debating what the metrics are. We're saying, hey, there's this industry research, you should read about it, but here's what it says. And these are the metrics that we're gonna measure ourselves on. Again, deployment, I only gave 2. Deployment frequency, lead time, change failure rate, and time to recover. So 2 of those are speed metrics, essentially, how quickly can we move, and 2 of those are stability or quality metrics, how well are we, how high is the quality of the software that we're delivering. So again, to your point, having those standard metrics means we're not debating how to measure ourselves. Those are the measurements, or those are the high level, I'll call them engineering outcomes that we can measure our progress on. And to your point, the clustering that the research shows. Again, here's what the low performers are. Like, all those things are measured in months, and the medium performers are order measured in weeks, and the high performers are order measured in days, and the elite performers are order measured in hours. The fact that there is that industry clustering, and you can see a path forward from, hey, we're medium performer today. Here's some of the things that teams that are higher performers or elite performers do. Those are the techniques that we can put into practice. Again, those are. I know you know this, but the continuous delivery techniques, all aspects of automation, trunk-based development, all those things. But yeah, having those standardized metrics is great. A bit of the challenge is, and again, this is total human behavior. Sometimes teams' initial reaction is, and they don't exactly think of it this way, but how can I game them, right? How can what are easy ways that I can make my deployment frequency look better, or my lead time look better? In the end of the day, putting the practices in place tends to be what drives sustainable value. But
right. Well, so that point, like the human behavior point, is really interesting. Like this season, we're talking a lot about sort of using. I'll categorize it as using failure as a means to learn, and I think that word is really hard for people, right? People think, oh, you're measuring me and calling me a failure, and we're always trying to elicit the this isn't as good as we want it to be. You sort of led this in with, we wanted to be faster, and we actually, as we talk about what we do internally and externally, we say every software engineering team wants to be faster, because it's universally true, right? It doesn't matter how fast you're going. You want to be faster. So how was there work to shift that mindset and say, look, this is not an indictment of your behavior, anything you've done. It's the system. The system puts you into this situation. I'm evaluating the system and trying to fix the system with your help so that you're not in this situation. And ultimately, I mean, I keep saying this, I would love to hear your thoughts on it. As a software developer, it's just more fun to deliver quickly.
Oh my gosh.
It's more fulfilling and rewarding, right?
It's so much more fun. And you're asking such good questions that I never even got to the punchline. So the punchline is, last year we work with 10% of the teams using the metrics we talked about, using the questions that I talked about, using the tools that I talked about. And those 10% of teams, so think 300, 400 engineers across a cross-section of eBay, we were able to double their productivity. So holding the team size constant, holding the team composition constant, they produce twice the number of features and bug fixes that they used to do. And this is self-reported by the teams. And along the way, the teams are having way more fun. They never want to go back to the older way of filling out tickets and, all the things that, they used to do. And along the way, we moved the Accelerate metrics substantially, right? So again, as I mentioned, moving from twice a month to roughly twice a week, 10-day lead time to 2-day lead time. And we weren't even focused on the quality metrics, the change failure rate and the MTTR, but they both went down as well. I mean, they both improved as well. Again, is exactly as you'd expect by moving to smaller batch sizes. Everything gets better. Yeah, what was your question?
Well, I don't actually remember. It's fine. We're gonna keep going because now what I'm interested in is the correlation, right? I think that there's a lot of concern, and when I talk about metrics, often get this question of, yeah, we want to move faster, but that's we can't handle the impact on quality.
Oh yeah.
Right. And as you're just describing,
there's no
if you just try to hold those things constant, they actually get better.
Yeah, and the very non-intuitive insight that the research shows over and over again is by getting faster, you improve quality. These are not mutually exclusive. They're actually mutually self-reinforcing. It is a virtuous cycle. Every time we get faster, we get higher quality, and the way to get faster is to have higher quality. So it's a virtuous cycle. I get a little bit faster, the quality gets better, that quality gets better, it allows me to go faster, and so on. And the insight behind that is smaller batch sizes, right? The smaller units of work mean it's easier to roll out, roll back, understand what's going on. If something breaks, there's only one thing it could be, because there's only one thing I changed. All aspects of automation, it's not only about automation, but it's necessary but not sufficient. Automate the testing, automate the security vulnerability checking, automate accessibility testing, automate automate the rollout, automate the canary, all this kind of stuff, and just make things flow really fast and make it easy for small batch sizes to get all the way. And again, no conflict between speed and stability. In fact, they're self-reinforcing. So again, that's what the research shows. The best companies, the best organizations, those elite performers are faster and they're also better.
Yeah, that is, we can't say that enough. I mean, we've been quoting for decades in this industry, these three things, pick two, like time, cost, money, or cost, quality, whatever. Yeah. And they actually work together. Yeah. Once you start thinking about it the right way.
Exactly right. Yeah. And it's very non-intuitive. I mean, why do we have to keep saying it? Just because it is super non-intuitive.
Right.
Our natural intuitive thought process is, I want to be higher quality. I better slow down and think more. And It's not slow down and think more. It's speed up and do more. Right. Excellent.
So I am going to go back to the previous question now that I remembered what it was about. It was really the human element of, I am here with these metrics, and basically that's an indictment of your performance as opposed to the system is keeping you from performing. Help me unlock the system to help you, really perform.
Yeah. And open and honest. So again, I'm going to give people another reference. So the Westrom organizational model, which is quoted everywhere in the DevOps research and in Accelerate, differentiates between three different kinds of cultures. There's pathological, where failure is punished and messengers are shot and innovation is crushed. And that exists in a lot of places. Then bureaucratic is in the middle, rules and standards. We've always done it this way. We're going to keep doing it that way forever. And then the generative organizations, where failure is celebrated. It's looked at as an opportunity to improve. Messengers are celebrated. Innovation is encouraged. And no surprise, those three different kinds of organizational cultures drive directly. You can set if you tell me you have a pathological culture, I can then tell you that means you're going to be a low performer, and that means you're going to have bad engineering outcomes and bad business results. Straight line. Same on the other side. If you tell me you have a generative culture and it's right, then I predict that the research predicts that you're going to be a higher elite performer. You're going to have better business results. You're going to spend 44% more time building new features as opposed to doing maintenance, and you're going to have way better market share, productivity, and profitability. And this is not me. This is Dr. Forsgren and that amazing work. So how do you have that conversation when sometimes, there are pathological situations in the team, and it's 100% building that psychological safety and coming at it and reinforcing over and over again. Can't say it just once. Reinforcing over and over again. I'm here. I'm from the platform and I'm here to help. And showing it, right? So like people are legit skeptical, when some new fancy VP with a C title comes in and starts, poking around and telling me I'm slow. But when they see their teams next door, raising issues and getting those issues solved and having a better time with it, that starts to drive the psychological safety. And the other thing, which we spent last year doing, is it's great to have the industry proof points. Like it's great to be able to point to the research. It's great to be able to point to other organizations that people's friends work at, or maybe spouses, or significant others that work at, that are doing things in a more modern and a more effective way. But the proof in the pudding is really, are we able to do it here, right? And so the pilot last year, in quotes, that we did with the 10% of the teams, and it's a cross section across essentially all parts of eBay's business, was basically to develop those proof points, right? So it's not just true out in the world,
Right.
It's not just true in the books. It's true here at eBay with our people, with our technology, with our infrastructure, and all that. And that made a big difference. People are legit skeptical until they see it really tangibly, like with all the tools that they use. So
Yeah, that's such a great point. The ability to not just point outside, but to point inside and say, we can totally do this. This is a team that looked just like yours recently, and now they look like this. And look at how much they're smiling.
Yeah,
Wouldn't you want to smile that much every day?
100%. And it's infectious. And so actually what happened was we had initially kind of signed up. It was a coalition of the willing, but like we signed up 6 teams to work with us last year, and other teams that like weren't in that 6 pushed their way in. I mean, so we started the year with 6. We ended the year with 10 teams, 10 organizations that made up of multiple teams, but that were part of the program, exactly because they said, "Wow, my next door neighbor she sure looks happy over there. Like, what's the deal?" And they were excited enough to push their way in, and it's made a difference. Teams are now helping each other. We've broken down silos between the product teams that we knew were there, but we broke them down in a lot of ways. Teams like sharing tools and practices, and also broken down a lot of major silos that had grown up for over years between the kind of product engineering side of the house and the kind of platform and infrastructure. Everybody studiously ignored one another and threw tickets and shade over a wall. But now, and it's so simple. But we hadn't done it before. It's like, hey, you have this problem. You want to monitor better. I build the monitoring system. What if we crazily worked together and piloted it in this really tight feedback loop? And every time you had a problem, I solved it for you right away. And turns out that works.
Tickets and shade. That's one for the book. I love it. Okay, well, the whole discussion of culture and the impact of culture and celebrating failure, I think, is a great transition into this final bit. We call it the Red Build Rewind. Celebrating something that maybe didn't feel so good in the moment, but I can only imagine the collection of options that you have to choose from. But can you tell us about something that felt very catastrophic in the moment that ultimately ended up being a great a lesson or taught you something that you've been able to carry on?
Yeah, I'm going to tell a story from Google. So there actually is an eBay story from 1999, which you can read about, a 28-hour outage, which completely rebuilt, in the aftermath, eBay completely rebuilt itself. But I wasn't there for that, so it's not really my story to tell. It's well told by a bunch of other people. The story I will tell is from 2012, when I was running engineering at Google App Engine. So early days of Google Cloud, Google App Engine. It's actually the original serverless. Now we have that word. We didn't have that word in 2006 when App Engine started. But if people are familiar with platforms as a service like Heroku or Engine Yard, Cloud Foundry. App Engine is Google's equivalent to that. Okay, so I was running engineering for that, and this is back in, I want to say, October 2012. We had an 8-hour global outage. So at the time, App Engine supported 3 million applications around the world, and one of which was Snapchat, in that day, and the predecessor game to Pokemon Go called Ingress, and a bunch of other things. So 3 million applications. They were all down globally for 8 hours. So that was a very bad day. I'm happy to describe the details of the outage, cascading failure, etc. But really, what was most important in retrospect was what we did afterward. So once we got a little bit of a sleep and we dusted ourselves off, we did what we ended up calling the reliability fix-it. So, huge focus for the team going forward the next 6-12 months on not ever having that happen again, and also not having any sort of equivalent reliability failures happen. So this pattern worked so well at that time that I've used it now at 3 or 4 subsequent places. So step one, this was true when we would get everybody in a room. That could be virtual now, but what we did was get everybody in a physical room, and we said, write down on all the whiteboards that you see all the reliability issues, real, imagined, thought of, that you can think of. So not just what contributed to this outage, but any of those things that were like in the back of your head, like, I'm not sure if that system could hold up. And we filled, it was a big old room surrounded with whiteboards, and we filled those whiteboards. Then, second phase, in that same room with those same people just then, we bucketed those things into themes, because like everybody kind of brainstormed, semi-independently, but then it became clear that, okay, this theme is around the reliability of this system. This theme is around, I don't know, onboarding of new services. We had 6 or 8 different themes, and people volunteered or were voluntold to take each of those things. So there was one person who took each of those areas, and we time boxed for a week. So in a week, we're all going to come back together. You, Rob, if you were on that team, the section that you take, think about it, work on it for a week, find all the other issues that maybe we didn't say, have some proposed ideas about what we might do to fix them. And so we came back together a week later. For each of those themes, we had a list of projects that we would do. And I don't mean like design docs. I just mean here's one line item. We should focus on such and such. We should we should have redundant backups. Line item things. So you come with a line item project suggestion, order of magnitude effort estimate. Are we talking about 1 hour, 1 day, 1 week, 1 month? So you didn't do a lot of detail. You just guessed what it would be. And then as a team with all the stakeholders, we said, all right, what are the things we're going to start with first? Because we had a big old backlog, and what are the top 5, 10, 20 things we're going to do today that are going to give us have the biggest ROI. And then step 4, do it. And again, very low overheads for management. Management was me. We literally had a Google spreadsheet where there was one row for each of these things, and what's the status for each week, and do you need help, and how are we moving forward on those? And the punchline is, after 6 months of that work, we reduced the reliability issues by 10x. And we also we were happier. Because engineers want to solve real problems. They kind of, once you make it safe, they're willing to open up and say, yeah, this wasn't terrible, and you think you were bad. Our replication wasn't working, and we weren't even taking backups, and all this stuff. And you make it safe to talk about improvements as opposed to layering shame or humiliation on people because of failures. And engineers want to solve those problems. And people still remember, it's 10 years now, people still remember it, that we're on that team. Remember that reliability fix-it? That was the best. And, nobody liked the fact that we had an 8-hour outage, but everybody felt great about our response to it. And our customers benefited too. So.
Yeah. For sure. The thing that's really interesting, we talk about taking that and using it as a learning. So it worked really well there, and you said you've replicated it in other places.
Yeah. I've given talks on, sorry to interrupt you, I've given talks, which I think it was at SRECon, I called it Anatomy of 3 Incidents. And so that was the first one. And using that same pattern, another incident that we dealt with at Stitch Fix, different in detail, but like also required this massive, cross-functional program to deal with. And then when I was at WeWork after that, again, super different in detail, but also, a bunch of issues that, required like a kind of broad-based program to solve. And, this like brainstorm, refine, prioritize, do it kind of thing, like really, really works well.
Love it. Well, you're not the only one, I think, running into these things. So hopefully some folks listening can take from that and learn from it. It's a great recap. Well, as expected, as I set you up for at the beginning, always deeply insightful and just so much rich experience and such great storytelling to talk us through all those experiences. Thank you so much for joining me. Thanks to everyone for tuning in today. If you like what you're hearing, you like the podcast, subscribe on your podcast provider of choice. If you want to hear us talk about something or talk to someone, find us on Twitter at CircleCI. Randy, thank you so much for taking the time and joining me today. A delight as always.
Thanks, Rob. Great to chat with you as always.